We got breaking news, brace yourselves, coming out of Manchester United. Sir Dave Brailsford is stepping back from his role as leading the club's football operations. He's not going to do that anymore. So Jim Ratcliffe, we understand, is planning a major reshuffle at Ineos. So Brailsford will go back to his role of Director of Sport with Ineos, but stepping back from the football operations at Manchester United. Mark, your reaction?
Huge news for Manchester United because Sir Jim Ratcliffe has gone in there with a fresh broom. He's swept aside a number of existing staff. He's tried to put new structures, new faces, new people in there. Best in class is what he wanted, so that he could return Manchester United to the top of the English footballing pyramid. That's where he believes they belong. And to do that, he wanted to put in a number of people. We know that Sir Dave Brailsford had worked with Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos at his previous football clubs. He'd been involved with, obviously, Team Sky. He'd been hugely successful and was someone that was charged with making marginal gains in sport. How can we improve every element of performance? And that's why he was brought into Manchester United. He was brought in at the same time as they took on that 25 to 30% shareholding of the football club. So Jim Ratcliffe was given full control over the football operation at Manchester United, and Sir Dave Brailsford was a key part of that. They brought in Omar Barada from Manchester City. They brought in Jason Wilcox from Southampton. They waited patiently to get Dan Ashworth in as well from Newcastle. They waited a long time, but already you've seen Dan Ashworth depart Manchester United. And now Sir Dave Brailsford, who is someone who could be considered as Sir Jim's right-hand man. So the fact that they've made another huge change right at the top of the tree would suggest they're jostling and moving things around because they don't quite feel yet that they've got the people at the top of Manchester United doing the type of work that they need to get them back on track. And we all know what's happened to Manchester United over the last 12 months. Sadly for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they've gone backwards instead of forwards. And this is another sideward step. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next. But this really, really big news for Manchester United.
James, so Ashworth has gone, Brailsford is going. What does all this mean for Amorim?
That's a very good question. I think at the moment they're pretty committed to Ruben Amorim. I think if they weren't, he would have gone by now 15th in the Premier League, trophyless season. They want to give him more time. Let's not forget, he hasn't been there for a full season yet. He joined midway through the season after Erik ten Hag left. So it'll be unsettling, I think, for everybody associated with Manchester United. News when Dan Ashworth only stayed for 5 months. That was quite unsettling. But this is big news. And as you said, it is his right-hand man. This is his trusted confidant, the man he seems to bring everywhere with him to help deliver. Now, behind the scenes, I understand he was played a key part in the redevelopment of Carrington. So there's probably things that we don't necessarily see that he's been a part of. But ultimately, on the footballing side, which he was quite on top of that tree, it isn't working out and changes need to be made already, though, in a short space of time.
Goodness me, yeah. And we'll, of course, get much, much more on this throughout the evening here on Sky Sports News.
And I think we look at Rashford, we look at Sancho, you look at Anthony. I think we might get on to Anthony a little bit. But you look at where loan signings actually work well. Look, he had no future at Manchester United. Ruben Amorim made it very, very clear he didn't want him part of the first team squad. Actually very different to the Anthony situation, where Anthony was included in pretty much the majority of Amorim's squads. But then he's gone on to have a really positive loan spell with Aston Villa. In particular, that second leg at Villa Park against PSG, I thought he was utterly phenomenal. That was the best of Marcus Rashford. And he shows that he's got something still to give. But he's back at Manchester United. He's got a contract, I believe it's till 2028. 200k a week he's on. Manchester United are looking to offload. So the options are really, is someone going to come in and pay £40 million, which seems to be the fee that's earmarked for Marcus Rashford, or is someone going to come in and want to loan the player and pay his 200k a week wages? That's the options he's got. But
right,
it's
so
where...
Talk me through the mechanics of this then. How does it work? If you're someone who's interested in Rashford, do you just sit tight and wait and wait and wait until Manchester United are desperate to get rid so you get the best deal? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. If you walk into Manchester United and say, we want to take Marcus Rashford, they're going to say, you've got to pay all of his wages and you've got to give us £40 million. Full stop. And that's
if you want him now.
If you want him now. In 4 weeks' time, that might change. In 6 weeks' time, that might change. 2 or 3 days before the deadline closes at the end of August, it will be a very different deal. That's why you've seen players like Jadon Sancho go from Manchester United to Chelsea, or Raheem Sterling go from Chelsea to Arsenal, where you've got Chelsea and Manchester United playing huge chunks of their wages, because actually it's better to shift 50% of the wages off the bill instead of keep paying 100% and not really have them involved. So therefore, this is where a lot of clubs will sit tight over the course of the start of this window. You see clubs like Liverpool who go into the market. They've got targeted players. This is what we want. This is where we're going to go and strengthen. And these are the players that are going to add to our squad. And for those other players that may be a little bit further down the list, they'll just go, well, let's just wait and see. There's not going to be huge numbers of clubs coming in for Marcus Rashford right now because, as James has said, £40 million, £300,000 a week, that's a tough deal to do for most clubs. So therefore, there's only a very small group of clubs that can entertain that kind of finance. So they'll just say, well, let's just wait and see. And then they'll make their move. So at the minute, there will be one price, but in 6 weeks' time or 10 weeks' time, that price will change.
And, you know, as I was mentioning, Amorim made it pretty clear he doesn't see Marcus Rashford as part of his plans moving forward. So, again, clubs can go, right, let's take a step back. We've got time on this because they're going to want to offload him. They want to offload this player. We're going to try and get the best deal possible.
So it's a massive game of chicken, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
So
always.
Anthony's back at Manchester United. Same for him, is it?
Yeah, same situation. Obviously, he got to the Europa Conference League final of Real Betis, was starting week in, week out, was scoring, was putting on social media how much he was loving life in Spain. Away from United. And therefore, you know, he was making all of those right noises. But this is a player that Manchester United invested around £80 million in, and they're paying him handsomely as well. They are going to want to recoup as much of that as they possibly can. My information is that Manchester United are open to all types of offers for Anthony, but you know that Real Betis are not going to get anywhere close to £80 million. So therefore, is one of those back in the building for the moment, but let's see how things progress. And that's the key with a lot of these players that go back to their parent clubs. How do they get on? What does the manager see? Do they start pre-season with the right type of attitude? Do they show something in those early pre-season training sessions and games where they say, OK, this is a clean slate? And that's where it could get quite interesting for some of these players.
Yeah, be good. All right, let's take a break. Racing through this. Now, Mark yesterday was telling us Bournemouth fan...
About Manchester United then, because do you have an update on their pursuit of Bryan Mbeumo?
Well, they have made initial contact now. They have registered their initial interest with Bournemouth for Bryan Mbeumo. So contact has been established. I think the issue here is going to be that Bournemouth are not going to stand in the player's way. They accept that he has done a lot for the club and he wants to move on to perhaps a bigger stage, and he wants to move to Manchester United. But the deal has to be right for Brentford as well. And I think they will be asking for a transfer fee of around £60 million. Significantly for Manchester United, despite all the doom and gloom surrounding the club, he, like Matheus Cunha, has actually said, I want to move to Old Trafford this summer.
OK, what about another man in demand, Milos Kerkez?
You know what it is? Everyone always has their opinion. They're going to have their opinion on everything. You have to witness it and be there to realise what it's like. You can't have an opinion on something you've never seen. People always just assume certain things about things without seeing it. So I suggest people have a look before they start making judgments.
And that's absolutely fair. What's your judgment then? What do you think of the standard out there?
It's tough. It's not
Is
easy.
it?
Yeah, it's not easy. There's some good footballers and it's going in the right direction, and I'm sure it'll continue to do that over the years.